Hello, hello. Welcome to our live discussion today. I'm with Mel. My name's Kat, and we'll be talking about intuition today. Just a very quick intro for those who might be listening to this channel first time. I'm Kat. I'm a spiritual medium and healer. My details and my website, my offers are available in the description for you to have a little look at. And Mel?
Hello, I'm Melanie Stevens. I'm a spiritual mentor, Reiki master and tarot reader. I'm based in Devon in the UK. And likewise, my details, contact details, socials, etc. are in the description box.
Cool. So this is our live podcast episode, so-called. So we'll be discussing a topic, and then if anyone watches us live and has questions, then we will answer the questions at the end. So yeah, I suppose we might as well just start. Intuition, what it is, how to work with it, how to recognize it, what tools you can use. So maybe let's start with what it is. Do you have any first thoughts that come to your mind, Mel?
Yeah, so and funnily enough, I haven't prepared too much for this session because I thought I'd let the intuition flow. So this could go horribly wrong, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So intuition for me is that sort of gut feeling. So it sits in the solar plexus area, which is just above the tummy button. And it's when you kind of feel something or you know something and you don't know where it's come from. So you know when you're making a decision with your brain, with your logical mind, because you're weighing things up and you're thinking and you're working things out. And sometimes you go, it might be something simple. You might go to buy something, you might go to choose a course, you might go to make a decision, and something just feels like it's pushing you into one particular direction, but it's not coming from logical thoughts. And it's as if you're getting, I call them nudges, like intuitive nudges, like someone's just like going like that and pushing you in a certain direction. It might make logical sense, it might not, but logic doesn't come into the equation when you get that feeling. It's not when you're in the middle of thinking. Very often it's when you've stopped thinking, then you sit quietly and you just get this almost epiphany, this feeling of, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to make that decision. And it comes up from within. For me, it almost like when the thought arrives in my brain, it's come from deep within my body rather than from elsewhere. It's difficult to describe until you've felt it. It just feels like it's risen up from deep within your energy and just pops up, and it can be quite unexpected. It can seem quite random. That's usually my intuition.
Yeah, and I like the description where we say that intuition is the sense of our spirit. So like where we have all the five, is it, or four senses, like the smell, the sight, the touch, and then intuition is another sense that everyone has that comes from our spirit, right? Because all the other ones are our body. This one is our spirit. And it can be very subtle. And if we have a very loud mind, or we're very focused on our logical mind, it can sometimes come unnoticed because it's very subtle. But the way I think I recognize it, and I understand it these days, is that intuition doesn't have any emotional undertone. So if you have a decision to make, or you come across something and you suddenly feel a certain way, or it instills fear in you, then that's most like your emotional response, maybe based on your thoughts or your beliefs and things like that. Whereas intuition, as you said, would come in randomly. You're not really expecting it. It just is, but it's often quiet. So if we're in an emotional state, high emotional state, for example, it could be a little bit difficult to hear it or know it, but it's there if we pay attention, and we can all listen to it. But it takes, I think, at first, if we're not used to it, it can take a little while to get used to. Yeah, but that's like the main difference, I would say, between what are our thoughts or beliefs, or habits, maybe even, to what the intuition is. It's just And I feel also that it might be experienced by different people in different way. I don't know, obviously, because I'm not anyone else. But I think the way I've experienced it so far, it's either just a knowing, like you said, it's just I just know that this is the answer or this is the decision. I would sometimes it just feels, but when I say feel, I don't mean it necessarily emotionally, as in I have a strong emotional response. I just feel in my heart that this is right for me. But also my body might respond, as you I think mentioned something like a feeling of expansion, and you're suddenly like, it's like it opens you up, and then you and you have this almost like an epiphany, I suppose. But it's not very, like I said, it's not very emotionally charged. Still, it's a
No.
different.
And I think that from what I hear from people when they are opening up intuitively is that it's differentiating between what's my head and what's my intuition. And that's the hardest thing to learn, because initially you think, well, all my thoughts just come from my head, don't they? But they don't. And if there is, interesting you were saying about if there's an emotional charge to it, it's not intuition, because if you're feeling something and there's a lot of fear around it, it's coming from the mind. Your intuition won't feel scary. You might react to that intuitive feeling that, oh, I need to take some action here. I could be in danger. But the intuitive message itself holds no emotion. If you suddenly feel, oh my God, I'm about to die, and you feel frightened, it might be your own brain coming in, your own mind coming in, bringing that sense of fear with it, because we can have really scary thoughts sometimes. And I have a tendency, or I am really working hard not to, and I am getting somewhere with this. I have a tendency for catastrophizing, imagining the worst possible case. And when I looked into why am I doing that, it's because apparently I'm preparing myself for the worst possible thing to happen so that I'm ready for it. But that's not a healthy way to live, because you're constantly in that fight or flight where your adrenaline's going and your nervous system's reacting. So now when I start to imagine something really awful happening because I'm scared it might happen, I stop myself and I switch it round and bring in something positive, which it's such a nicer way to live, because you're not constantly in fear.
For sure.
And that's not intuition, that's me. When it's got that fear attachment, that's coming from me. So
Yes, exactly. I also have or had a similar way of being always prepared for the worst. Like I always did, okay, you know, whatever decision I'm making, well, if this happens, the worst case scenario, then this, you know. And it also meant that I was running a lot on my nervous energy quite a bit. And when I started to tune into my intuition and work with my spirit more, I found a lot more peace, because I feel it's also helping us understand that, yeah, we can't we can't have everything under control, but if we manage our well-being, maybe how we feel, then we'll be able to listen to our intuition that is always looking after us, I feel. So the way I understand it, it's our, like the origin of intuition, I feel, would be, it comes through our, probably, now I'm saying how I feel about it. I don't actually know for sure. I haven't read it anywhere or anything, but the mechanics that I imagine are that it works through our energetic body, but the wisdom of it is coming from our higher self, from our soul that knows, that is connected to all there is and is connected to the love and divine love, and also your kind of, and through that your soul's plan, and also it connects you to the universal laws of like manifestation and abundance. So you're tapped into that, and if you let yourself listen to it, you'll know that you'll be guided towards, more peaceful outcomes, I'd say, because it doesn't mean it's going to stop you from challenges. Because I think maybe one misconception could be that people might think if you maybe for people who are quite intuitive, they think, oh, you're probably, the life is easier because now you know everything, you know what's going to happen, so you can make different choices and kind of avoid challenges in life, which is not unfortunately the case. It's just a different way, I suppose, of living and dealing with them, because listening to your internal cues helps you be a bit more peaceful, making decisions that are right for you and not based on what maybe other people's needs or pressures from environment. You're just honoring yourself, and through that you can have a more fulfilling life, I think, in general, and just help through challenging times.
Yeah, and I think that what is interesting with intuition, because I believe sometimes we are intuitively led to something that's going to be really challenging. We're
Mm-hmm.
not going to intuitively take the easy option. That's not why we're here. So tapping into your intuition doesn't mean you're going to have a peaceful, easy life, but it means that you intuitively know how to handle what's thrown at you for your highest good and for your greatest development. And we've said before, the biggest soul growth comes from those challenges and those experiences. If life was easy, you wouldn't evolve as a soul being. You evolve more when you do face difficulties, because you learn different ways to adapt to different things that happen in your life, different ways to respond to those things happening. Being intuitive doesn't mean those things aren't going to happen, but when they happen, you can intuitively feel, how do I best deal with this situation? Do I need to change? Do I need to walk away? And you can make the right decision for you, but you might still choose something that is uncomfortable or challenging, but maybe that thing is going to teach you something that in 10 years time you are so grateful that you learned it, because it's led you to where you need to be. And of course, we don't know 10 years from now how everything we experience now is going to unfold, but I don't regret anything from my life, because I've learned from every single experience, good, bad, right, wrong, whatever way you want to label it. It's just experiences.
True. Yes. um so I suppose I'm just looking at the notes. We could talk about different ways of, maybe the tools that we can use to tap into intuition, or ways to even start listening to your intuition, I suppose, so that if whoever is listening has never done it before, and they're a little bit clueless, we can always give a few pointers. So yeah, so we have brought a few props, myself and Mel, so that we can talk through them. And I suppose, I mean, as you guys know, probably if you're watching this channel, we do a live readings every Thursday, and we're using cards. And cards are one of the ways in which you could, in a way, tap into your intuition, but still sort of see the answer in something else that is a card, right? Because it's not the card that's magic. Let's say we are the magic. And through our intuition, we choose the right card, right? So if we just trust ourselves and ask the right questions and then pull a card, it's meant to be, because it still comes from our intuition, from our even subconscious, I think. I feel like I don't want to muddle it up too much, but I feel like a lot of it is kind of connected, because we're, in a sense, that we're subconsciously, intuitively choosing which card is right for us at this very time, because we all have the answers to our questions within us already. It's just sometimes a little bit, it takes a little bit time or practice to actually tap into it, and different kinds of tools are quite helpful. So yeah, I don't know, Mel, if you want to let us know maybe how you use cards, how they helped you.
Yeah. I mean, I've got loads of decks. And the thing is tarot aside, because I learned tarot professionally, and I learned traditional tarot, so all of the cards' meanings and how they interact with each other and spreads, that's a whole different ballgame. But if we go to oracle cards, anybody can use oracle cards to read intuitively. You can read tarot intuitively, you don't have to study it.
You still choose the cards.
Exactly, you're choosing the cards, and with, you know, with say a bog standard an oracle deck you pick up, you can choose a card, you can open the book, and you can read the description. The card you've chosen is the one that's right for you because that's your intuition leading it there. But maybe in the description you're reading, certain words and phrases jump out to you more than others. But as well as that, rather than picking the card, reading the description, going, there we go, I'm done, a way to really develop is to sort of dive into the card and look at, I've just picked up my Earth Magic deck, which I love. I'll hold it up in case anybody's into oracle cards. You've got the same one, Kat, haven't you?
Yes.
Just lovely, this deck. So if you pulled a card, okay, so this one's called Instincts, interestingly, and you've got an image on the card of a wolf, and you've got the mountains and everything else. So you might pull this card and think, well, I'll go and have a look at the book, at the description. But before you do that, when you hear the word wolf, what do you think of? When you look at the wolf on the card, how do you feel? Do you feel like you are represented by this wolf in the card? What do the mountains feel like to you when you look at them? What words are popping into your head when you look at this card? What feelings are arising when you look at the card? Or are you, when you shut your eyes, do you see things that pop up in that way? And we can get a real feeling from looking at an image, comparing it to another card where you might have this. Sorry, it's very shiny and reflective, but this is the autumn card with all the autumn colours, and you know, autumn is a period of death before the period of rebirth. So what might that be telling you? What are the colours making you feel, the reds and the oranges compared to the greys and the blues and the whites on this card? And it's allowing the card to speak to you. And you might think, well, I'm talking to a card, how does that work? But you're talking to your higher self, and you're getting these intuitive messages because you're giving your higher self the opportunity to communicate with you through pictures, shapes, symbols, colors, words, whatever it is that you're looking at on that card. So that is more of how to do an intuitive reading rather than just diving straight into the book. It's looking at what's on the card and how those words, I mean, you know, there's words on most oracle cards as well. What pops into your head when you see those words? How do you feel? And tapping into the card that way.
Yeah, exactly. And also when you pick up a card and you look at the pictures, it's remember not to overthink it as well. Because sometimes we might think, oh, this feels like, I don't know, happiness. For instance, I picked up a card that says purification here, and there's a fairy, white fairy. So there's a lot of white color, and you might think, oh, happiness. And then, you know, your mind might quickly come in and say, no, happiness is more of a yellow color or something, you know, because, I don't know, it might happen. It happens to me sometimes. So, but don't worry about almost like the second thought or the one that's coming in and judging and doubting. It's what comes out the very first time, and we just don't want to judge what's coming up. So it's maybe good for instance, write things down, the very first thing that comes to your mind without judgment. Don't worry if it makes logical sense, if it's like completely suddenly disconnected from the pictures and it's taking you places. That's the whole beauty of just letting go and letting it flow, I suppose, to rhyme a little bit. But apart from that, if you want, you can help yourself by preparing ahead of time, for instance, working with colors. So you could write down each color without looking up on the internet, but just what each color means to you. What do you associate each color with? What do you associate, I don't know, animals with? Maybe if you want to do a little exercise like that, maybe knowing what your cards generally have. And then when you pick one up and you have one that has this certain color and this animal, then you can, you know, have a little look as to what you've written down and then expand from it. I really liked working with colors. That's something that I have worked quite a bit the first time I learned how to intuitively read the cards. And it helped me quite a lot. I was really positively surprised as how useful just color work is. And also you can look at the, like you said, the wolf. Does it feel like the wolf is representing you, or does it bring someone into your mind from your life maybe that is wolf-like? You know, and you can have quite a page filled up with that if you start writing it all down. but yeah, definitely. And it's okay to have personal associations, right, with each, whether it's a color or a symbol, and to start with. After a while, if you want to, you can look into some sort of interpretations and see if anything pops at you. Again, if there's some sort of interpretation online and you don't really feel like it's right or it resonates with you, then just don't take it. That's another way of working with your intuition, right? You only take what feels is right, and what isn't, just leave it. And then in the same way, I think, Mel, you had some pendulums. Uh, if you have it like next to you, I think I
Yeah.
actually have it just
I
behind
mean,
me.
the pendulum's slightly different, because with pendulum with pendulum, we're getting sort of yes, no, maybe answers. So we're getting direct questions that we can ask of our intuition. So if we are really stuck on a decision we want to make because we're emotionally attached to it, and we just want somebody to say, yes, that's something worth pursuing, or not at this time, or not now, or not at all, you can use the pendulum and get those straightforward yes no answers. And you can ask, when you pick up a pendulum, to communicate with your intuition, with your higher self, and pick the pendulum up and say, I want some answers, some subconscious answers, because my conscious mind isn't able to make a choice or find out where to go next. With the pendulum, if you are really, really emotionally attached to a particular answer, I probably wouldn't recommend using it, because you can influence the
Thinking
pendulum
that, yeah.
movement. Yeah. So it is one of those things. I wouldn't get into the habit of picking the pendulum up to ask it everything, because you can make most of your life decisions. You know, you don't need to ask the pendulum, what shall I wear today? You know, you can make those decisions. But sometimes if there's a little thought, oh, I wonder if I should pursue that avenue, and ask the pendulum to swing to yes or no, and that's your subconscious mind, if you like, sort of saying, no, that's not on your path, or yes, that's worth exploring. So it's not a yes, you absolutely should do that, black and white answer. It's a little bit of guidance in which direction shall I go in. What I like about working with colours and cards and things like that is you can build, like Kat was saying, you can build your intuitive dictionary, if you like, by writing things down. This colour means this to me, this symbol means that to me. And then when you see that symbol or colour in nature, or you see it visually, or you dream about it, you know exactly what that means, because you've already created your own intuitive dictionary. So the pendulum is just a slightly different way to get answers, and it will literally swing in a certain direction when it's giving you a yes, and it will swing in a different direction if it's giving you a no. So it might be forward and backwards is a yes answer, and then left to right is a no answer.
And I believe you have a workshop. Is it a workshop or a course on
Yeah,
how
it's
to
a
make
free
pendulums?
workshop on my website, so anybody can sign up for that and get hold of it for free. If you go to www.melanie-stevens.com, and then if you it will pop up and ask you if you want to subscribe. It's completely free. You just need to enter an email address and password, or you can use your Gmail or your Facebook details. What you can then do is log into my website, and you'll see 2 hidden tabs pop up. One of them says workshops, and in there is a dowsing with a pendulum workshop. It gives you a few ideas about how to work with the pendulum, how it works, and, you know, sorts of things you can ask it. So, I mean, what would you ask a pendulum, Kat, if you wanted to be pendulum? What sort of question would you be looking to ask?
Well, I mean, with pendulum, the way I learned it is that you really need to know how to ask a question, because many answers are not straightforward. So, for instance, if I was thinking about choosing between 2 jobs, for instance, you know, and I could ask, oh, is job A good for me? And pendulum says yes. Is job 2 good for me? And the pendulum says yes. And you're like, well, which one is it? Right? So you have to be very, like, super specific. For instance, you would then ask, or you would have to think a little bit as to what is important for you, right? Are you going for recognition? Are you going for, you know, bigger salary? Do you feel like it's important to you that you have great camaraderie with your colleagues, you know, friendships in your job? Then I would ask literally every specific question and see how the pendulum answers for that every specific question, because pendulum can pretty much just tell us yes, no, maybe, or neutral, right? Where it's like either way, it's fine. So whereas, and then for instance, you could that's why you might want to think a little bit about which tool to use. Cards might tell you a little bit more. You can put a little bit more cards to give you a little bit of a story as to what's happening, what would happen in job 1, what would happen in job 2, kind of a thing. But yeah, pendulum is definitely a bit more straightforward. I just, as I'm talking about this, the first time I used pendulum, because to be honest, I haven't been using it that much. I don't feel like I guess I just don't need to. But there is something that I read about using pendulum to help you make choices. For instance, when it comes to your diet, like if you're not sure that something's good for you or it has the right, I don't know, nutrition for you, because maybe you're trying to find out if you are, I don't know, intolerant to something or allergic, then you can swing the pendulum for your body, because it's your body still, it's your intuition, your own self-knowing that's telling you what's good and what's not. Our bodies are very, very intelligent. And if we also listen to them, they will give us the answer, right? But pendulum could be one of the tools that can help us make those choices if we're sometimes unsure if something is good for us or not, like food-wise. I thought that was, and I kind of started using it and then I forgot and I kind of stopped. But after a while, I still did. Because I just started to follow my own internal cues. I just didn't want to have to ask something or use a tool, every single time. But I think just even knowing that I can, that I am telling myself really through pendulum what's good for me, what's not, and then recognizing maybe how I feel whilst the pendulum's moving. Did I actually feel the answer straight away before the pendulum moved? Did I not? It kind of taught me how to listen to myself better, and then I could put the pendulum away and then just continue practicing that without any tool.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got to that stage now as well, where if I want to have a conversation with my higher self, I just sit down quietly, ask, write, and just get answers. But certainly when you're starting out, it takes a while to get to that level. And I think the pendulum is a fantastic training tool for when you're learning. But for me, I mean, again, I've sort of moved away from using it now, but when I was using the pendulum, I would ask those big picture questions. Have I had a life on Earth before? Have I had a life in a different star system? Am I an old soul? I'd get the answers like yes, but then I'd be prompted to go and research it and have a look and ask more questions. So I'd get almost the green light to, yes, this is worth exploring. Then I'd put the pendulum away and then I'd go off and do my research. But one of the way I've used pendulums, which I did find really helpful, is I actually used it when I started with mediumship. When I was communicating to family members, I'd have an alphabet chart and I'd say, who is it that I'm communicating, who wants to talk to me? And it would spell a name, and it would spell my granddad's name, or I've had my dogs come through before. So that was really useful. And then, of course, I've been able to use that alphabet chart to say to my spirit guide, well, what's your name? Or I wouldn't use it for full sentences because it's quite slow. It takes a while. But just to get a name, then you can use the pendulum just to spell something out for you.
Or isn't it like choose options, so you can write them on a piece of paper and have one option on the right, on the left, then like at the top, at the bottom of the page, and then see which way the pendulum swings. Yeah,
you do it like a pie chart, so you can put like a different word or a different phrase in each segment, and then let the pendulum swing to whichever way it wants to. So that's called a dowsing chart that you can use with the pendulum, and you can create your own. You just need something circular and ideally evenly spaced pieces of pie with stuff with noise.
And one thing that comes to my mind also is to remember to try not to do it when we are, you already said that, emotionally charged about something. So we don't want to do this kind of reading when we're already, let's say, stressed and we're annoyed and like, okay, cards, tell me now, what's the outcome, and then you will just shuffling in this state. We have to calm down, because this also has an effect, and I feel it doesn't, maybe it wouldn't have an effect in the sense of how the answer comes up, but I feel it definitely would have an effect in muddling it all up and making it all confusing. I have a good example of that when going back also to how you phrase the questions and how specific you make them if you're using pendulum, because it's so specific. In 2020, I was when I was also practicing mediumship, and I was developing in my mediumship, and I was developing in connecting with my family, so myself with my family. And I was trying to fly to Poland, but that was during the pandemic and the lockdowns, the first lockdowns and everything. And I was trying to be there for a specific date and time, because I had to, I can actually share it. It was for my dad's funeral. So it's pretty important. And I mean, I wouldn't say I was in the best state, because I was very impatient to find out, is it going to work or is it not going to work? Because the actual airline was, I felt, playing about a little bit. They were in the way I experienced it. They weren't straightforward, and I didn't know what was going on, because that was I think it was the first lockdown. So I didn't really understand, are they flying? Are they not flying? I bought the ticket, yet they kept canceling it. So I'm like, well, why can I? So I was in this little bit of a stressful state. I tried to calm down and try and be neutral about the outcome. And I did ask my family to come and help me with this answer. And I remember I asked the question, will I be at the funeral? And the pendulum swung. Is that like the past tense?
Swang. I don't know.
Swing. Swung. I don't know.
Swinged.
Yeah.
I think
say
it's swung.
yes.
Swung.
Yeah.
You're right. It's swung.
Thank you. And it said yes. And I was like, okay. And to me, in my mind, that means, yes, I'm flying and I'll be there. And so I was like, okay. So I was waiting for the airlines to reply and let me know when and blah, blah. Anyway, after a while, it didn't happen. I didn't fly, but I still was present in the sense that I was watching it online.
Yeah.
So, so that's what I mean by being super specific, because, and I couldn't have thought about it back then anyway, because we didn't know that the online option was even an option yet. So, I could have just been, oh, this is rubbish, it lied to me or whatever. But it didn't. I didn't have all the questions. I couldn't cover all the bases. That's why it can be a little bit tricky. You've got to be really specific.
And what if it had said, if you said, am I going to fly? And it said no.
Exactly.
But you said, am I going to be there? And it said yes. You'd think, rubbish thing, it doesn't work.
Exactly right.
And then the emotion kicks up, and then you're like, well, just tell me. And then it's you will block your answers if you are in any way emotionally invested, unless you can really drop that and get, this is a word I know somebody else uses, get hootless, when you genuinely don't have any emotional attachment to it saying yes or no, and that's when it will speak to you. But even when it speaks to you, like you've just showed, it's still, it might not go the way you think it's going to go, just because it said, yes, you'll be there. You were there.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I just couldn't have covered all the bases or options, in my mind at the time, because I didn't know it all. So, and same goes for cards. Sometimes I would pick up cards because I would get frustrated with something. Then I'm just, okay, I just want to know what I'm meant to do. And then I would try to calm myself, and then I shuffle the cards, and then something comes up that just doesn't make sense. And I'm like, I can't read this. I don't know what it's telling me. And I would get so frustrated, just put it away. And I'm like, I can't do it. I think
we've all had an angry shuffle before with the cards, haven't we? When we're like, tell me what I need to do. And then
do you know what?
It's confusing, and then we get even angrier, and it's crazy.
Do you know what's funny? Actually, one time, So I was playing with different decks. So as you know, obviously there's tarot, which is like the system in itself. Then you have oracle cards, which are pretty much open to interpretation, and they can be all different. Then you have like the gypsy cards and what's the other one? Lenormand.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and Lenormand is a system in itself as well. And one time I just thought, because I was really curious, I was trying them all, practicing with them all. I have gypsy cards, I have Lenormand cards. And one day I had quite a miserable mood. And I think I was working and I had a lunch break and I just thought, oh, I'll just pull a card, see what it says. And I just decided I'll just pull a card. I didn't have a specific question. I just wanted to pull a card. So I got the Gypsy Oracle, I got the Tarot, and I think Lenormand. I think three of those. And I was like, oh, I'll just pull one of each. And then Gypsy, I think I started with Gypsy Oracle and I just shuffle, and then I picked the card of misery. Thank you very much. Yes, I am in a very miserable mood. And then I'm like, Lenormand. And I got the card with the guy who what is it called? Like beats himself up, anxiety. It's meant to signify anxiety, symbolize anxiety and stress. I'm like, okay, so basically they just came up to tell me how I'm feeling. And I'm like, thank you very much. I'm just gonna leave you aside now.
It's funny when that happens. I've had that many times, and that I've been in certain foul moods, and I've just got like the Death card and the Three of Swords and the Five of Cups, which is all the really bad cards in tarot. And then I'm just like, okay, I get it.
But it's like,
I'll put them away.
But it just, I suppose it just shows how much of an effect and power your emotional state has. You're literally picking what is happening. Like I was really miserable, and there is a card called misery. Well, great. That's great. Thank you very much.
It always lightens my mood though when you get something like that. It always makes me laugh. It's as if my spirit guides are there, just laughing at me.
I just thought as like miserable that is, it's actually really funny.
Yeah.
That was really good. Yeah. Do you have like any favorite ways of using it or tapping into your intuition? Did you ever use any exercises maybe, or I don't know?
Yeah, and it changes, to be honest. I'm always learning different ways and methods and things to use. And I'm in the next, where are we now? We're on the 20th of February today, but I'm going to be posting on my website a couple of things around this at the beginning of March, because I want to make it like my theme for March. And there's something I'm doing at the moment, which is such fun. And I've actually just done a little workshop on it on my website, another little free workshop people can go on and do, where it's working with your spirit guides, but it's also developing intuition. So I ask them to show me 10 things I'm going to see today. And I do it in the morning. And I shut my eyes and I see the most random things sometimes. And I try and draw what I'm seeing. But because I've got clairvoyance, I can see. Whereas if somebody said, well, I can't see visually, you could ask your guides to tell me 10 things I'm going to see today. Give me words. And you just hear paintbrush or sparrow or really weird, random things. And write them down and take that piece of paper with you throughout your day and notice when these things crop up. Really, really good fun. And they can crop up in the most strange places. It's not always visibly in front of you in the world. It might be on the internet. It might be in a magazine that comes through the door and it's on the front cover and you think, oh my God, I saw that in my head this morning. So that's a great fun way of developing your intuition and strengthening your guide connection as well, because your guides help with your intuition. It goes hand in hand. But the way I've developed to the point where I communicate with my higher self now through literally asking questions. It's like I have a business coaching meeting with my higher self or my spirit guides, and I sit down and I say, right, we've got an hour, shut the door, pen and paper, and I just ask, what new ways can I market my new course, for example? Because I've sort of run out of ideas. So I just sit there, shut my eyes, and I just allow things to flow and I write them down. And if I want to talk to my higher self, I might ask stuff about my soul contract, why I'm here. Am I following my soul contract? Is there anything I'm missing? What can I do to align more with my path? And I just let things flow and write them down. And you've kind of got to trust that what's coming through is coming through from your higher self, and don't sort of stop and think, well, this is just my brain. It's not. You're giving that deeper part of you, that unconscious, the opportunity to just flow with this information. And you can literally just sit and write. And some people like writing, some people might want to speak into a recorder if they don't like, the actual act of writing. It's whatever works with you. I really like that. I get my best ideas when I do that, when I finally sit down and stop doing stuff and give myself even half an hour of, right, I'm going to talk to my higher self. I'm going to get some nudges.
Yeah, and I think if you're starting out, because I think at the beginning it could be really difficult to trust, yourself, that that's what it is. But then go for a reading if you're thinking about it, and I bet you will have exactly the answer that you felt, because oftentimes whenever we go for a reading, they tell us exactly what we already know. It's just a really good confirmation. So yeah, I wouldn't rely on just going for readings to others all the time. I think it's a great way to seek some support and seek some guidance from time to time. But it also helps us, I think, with time to really see how much we already know, and then build that trust if we're willing. And other thing that came to my mind as you were talking, with that exercise that you said, when you ask your spirit guides, what will I see, like 10 things. I've noticed when I was developing at first, it was difficult for me to do these kind of exercises because of an expectation. So expectation creates resistance, because that's an emotional charge in itself. So if you don't receive anything, if you try to exercise and you don't receive anything, there is a chance that you're expecting something out of it, a little bit too much, and you're not completely in a state of just allowing. And it can take a little bit of time. It definitely took me a long time. For instance, it even translated into the kind of meditations that I had. I had to do guided meditations, because if I wanted to just sit down and do something by myself, I had too many expectations as to what I want to occur, what I want to happen. So my mind and my, eagerness, I suppose, for things to show up, just because eagerness, right? Expectation, it's an emotion. Therefore, it's some sort of a blockage. It creates a resistance to actually having the things or the messages flow to you easily. So it's just something to keep in mind as well. It's a very it could be maybe challenging. I don't know. Maybe not a very easy route, but it's worthwhile doing, to just start calming down, being neutral, surrendering, right? Trusting. I mean, trust is a huge, huge thing.
Yeah.
That's like, I think, the cornerstone of anything when it comes to intuitive world. And then if you go into readings and things like that as well, you have to trust, because without it, it's like, yeah, you can't. It's not a step that you can just skip.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that I've learned as well that, trust is something that it was a challenge for me, but I've got there with the trust, absolutely 100%. But it took a while. That was a test, and many people opening up intuitively will also experience that. But for me also, it's managing my energy, and that's what's been more prevalent for me recently as the latest sort of challenge that I'm being that's being brought to me for me to work on. Is that managing expectations is one thing. So if I ask my guide, show me 10 things I'm going to see today, I'm probably not going to see all 10 of them. But if I'm in that space of flow and I'm in a nice playful mood where I'm not expecting to see these things physically in the physical world, they could pop into anything. Like I said before, they could be on a magazine cover that comes through the door, might be on telly, might be on an advert. But if I have expectations that I expect to see this, that, and the other, that's going to block it, and I might not see anything. If I'm really tired and I'm in a grumpy mood because my energy levels are low, I'm probably not going to see anything. So if I'm having a bad week, I'm not doing that exercise because I know it's not going to work because my energy isn't where I need it to be. If I'm feeling really good and I've dropped those expectations because I'm used to doing that now, because I've trained myself to do it, I'm probably going to see more of them. But yeah, it's a couple of things. Well, three really. Trust, dropping your expectations, and managing your energy so that you are in a higher frequency of just feeling happy and joyful. And gratitude practice is good to raise your frequency just to get into that nice space. But if you're feeling really miserable, and we all get like it, we're feeling tired, we're fed up, I wouldn't do any intuitive work until your energy levels are back to where they need to be.
Yes, and I thought one of the things that helped me in the process, that was at the time when I was starting to do readings for others, but I feel it definitely works for if you're trying to, you know, speak to your own intuition, and if you're using tools, if you're reading for yourself, is just trying to set this attitude of just having fun and just being open, just like, oh, I'm just gonna do this reading just for fun to see what comes up. Like, let's just see, you know, out of curiosity, not because I want this or other. I'm just curious. Whichever way it goes is actually fine, you know, and let's just see what comes up. And that used to help me calm down a little bit and relax. So yeah, that's one of the ways that can be incorporated. And I was thinking about this question as you were speaking. Maybe someone might be wondering, well, why use your intuition really, and not your logical mind? Like, what, you know, what is the benefit of it? Shouldn't we be using our logical mind? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I would never suggest not to use the logical mind. It's why would you not? It's a wonderful tool. But we've got, for me, there's three main tools that I use when making a decision: head, heart, and intuition. And it depends on what it is I'm deciding to do and the importance of that as to what I tap into. So if it's what am I going to wear today, I really don't need to make an awful big deal out of that. I just and really I intuitively pull whatever I feel like wearing, and I very often wear blue because I love the color blue. It's a healing color, it's a calm color, I just love it. So I usually choose without even thinking. So I'm probably using my intuition there. Don't really need to tune into my heart or my logic to decide what color or what clothes I'm going to wear. But if it's something that's quite impactful, what job am I going to take, where am I going to move, if I'm moving house, then I want to use every tool at my disposal to make the decision, because then I know, A, I've been thorough, and that's my Virgo rising. I can't help but be thorough. And that I've consulted all of the various parts of me that are going to be impacted by that decision. My heart will be impacted by which job I take or which town I live in. So will my intuition, my gut, my feeling about why, you know, living there, is it the right energy? Does it feel right? And so will my head. Am I close to work? Am I near my family? It's a big decision. So for me, those three tools, head, heart, and intuition, have to all be playing together to make that decision. And if one of them is in conflict, then maybe that's not the right choice for me until I find something that just feels like all of those three areas are satisfied.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I was thinking. And other thing that I kind of came to a conclusion with is that, you know, I think to kind of trust your intuition, you do, or to, in order to want to trust your intuition, there is some sort of a I don't know, should I call it requirement? I don't know, for you to have some sort of a belief in that you have a soul. I feel, because then it really gives the importance and the understanding of really what intuition is, because partially what listening to your intuition will help you. As I said at the beginning, I feel it's the sense of our spirit, right? Like we have the five senses of our body, and then this one is the so-called sixth sense that everyone has, because everyone is a soul in a human body. And I believe that we all have a role let's say, a role to play in this life, and we all have a path to follow. And it's only going to be our soul that really has most of that information, or at least it's feeding through us, of course. But if we tap into our intuition, we have a really great connection with that side of us. And by following our path in life, it, amongst other things, it helps us not getting or not feeling lost, not feeling maybe miserable or like there's no meaning in life and all of that stuff. It actually can bring more happiness and a bit more fulfillment into our life and things like that. So, and then our mind can help us when it comes to the action. That's how I tend to use it. It's kind of like I would know, let's say I would listen to my intuition in terms of specific decision, and I know, okay, that's good for me. Let's say that option, my intuition, I can feel it, this is good for me. But now my mind needs to help me in figuring out how I get there, for instance, because I know that maybe I can't do things in a certain way or behave a certain way with this specific person because I know they're like this. So then the mind helps me become a little bit more strategic, I suppose, plan a little bit more, tells me what action to take, what my possibilities are, because we're still, kind of, let's say, limited into our physical life and what it requires of us and things like that. But ultimately, the biggest decision is the first intuitive one that tells me this is good for me. That's kind of how I use it currently.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes you get an intuitive feeling to go somewhere or do something and you don't know why, because you haven't got all the answers to be able to engage your logical brain in saying, well, let's weigh this up
Yeah.
and make a logical decision, because you think, well, I don't know. I'm going into the unknown and I'm just feeling like I need to take a leap of faith. And this is something that many of us have had who've got spiritual
Sure.
businesses. We feel guided to take a leap of faith, and we're like, but leaping where? We don't know where I'm leaping.
Where am I
We do it anyway. And that takes a lot of trust to do that, because there's nothing for that logical brain to cling on to and say, well, hang on a minute, let's do a pros and cons list, let's weigh it all up, because you don't know what you're going into. So there will be times potentially where you are presented with an option to just follow your gut, and you haven't got anything else because you're going into the darkness. And that you really have to feel strongly that you are going where you need to. And that for me would take communication with my guides, pulling tarot cards for myself. I'd probably bring in all the spiritual tools I've got, because I've got nothing to think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That's a big one, going into the unknown, for sure. I mean, it's a big one and it's a difficult one. It's one that I have definitely been challenged with. And funny enough, many times when I did a reading for myself, I would have one of the cards that say, you know, embrace the unknown or something like that.
It's so annoying when you get that
Gosh,
card.
it was one of the ones that was repeating for me quite often as well. And I just had to learn that I don't know everything and I can't know everything just yet. So it's just taking one step at a time and trusting in the process, whilst listening to where feel I'm being drawn to, or But yeah, it's which is a big thing, I think. That's one of the reasons why an intuition could be a really big helper in that situation, because I'm pretty sure many of us have these situations in life many times, and it can be the most scary thing when you just don't know what's happening because suddenly something happened you weren't expecting. But I feel like it will help. It will help us try and move through it with a little bit more, with maybe being at peace with what is, and knowing that we are still guided towards something better that's good for us. It might have happened for us this way because we're meant to go somewhere that's better. And without that trust and intuition, I think it's easy to really get lost and miserable.
Yeah, and miss out on opportunities as well, because we say
True.
I'm not doing anything until I've got all the answers.
Certainty and all the answers. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's definitely when I would pull in the tools and I would say, okay, so I'm feeling drawn to do this, bring in the pendulum. Is this for my highest good? Is it on my soul's path? If the pendulum swings to yes, okay, then you might pull an oracle card. What do I need to know about this situation? Happiness lies ahead. All right, so I'm getting all the right signs, and it's not filling me with dread, but it is making me uncomfortable because I'm uncertain. That's okay. That's to be expected. I'm gonna go with my intuition, and then it works out beautifully. My intuition's never let me down. My head has, and my heart has, but my intuition has never let me down. So but it is a big exercise in trust. But that's why all these tools that we can use, until we've developed enough of our intuition that we can literally just have that open dialogue with our higher self or with our spirit guides, the tools that we pick up along the way are so valuable in developing that and strengthening that intuition, until one day it will just flow and you'll just have this dialogue that just flows so effortlessly. It does take dedication and commitment to get to that stage. It's not something you just learn it overnight and that's it. It's really honed and strong. It's like a muscle, isn't it? Because you're using the pineal gland in the brain, and it needs to be used and strengthened and developed. And like anything, it gets stronger the more you use it. So every day, you're getting to where you need to be, but it does take time.
Can I ask you a question, actually, Mel? Because I'm curious to see what distinction you feel there is between intuition and heart. Because I don't use intuition and heart interchangeably because I don't feel like it means the same thing. But I feel sometimes my heart does tell me what to do, because it's in tune with what is, what's the word? Maybe not good for me, but what would, how do I say this? Like, if what wouldn't, what my needs are, maybe. Because I would, I feel that's also quite a important part of making decisions, I suppose.
Yeah, and
Is knowing what your needs are, because the needs are technically, you know, well, they're yours, right? So they're very, very yours. And you can often forget about yourself and, consider all the other options because I always say someone, but maybe like society requires you to consider other things, and then you're not considering your feelings and what your heart tells you about certain situation. So I am using my heart in that context. So I was just wondering what do you mean by saying heart? Not.
so I mean, intuition for me can be linked to survival. So my intuition might tell me, don't drive down that way to work today, go a different route. And then there might be something that happens on that route that I avoided. So it can be linked to survival because it's, it's linked, it's your gut feeling, and your gut feeling might act as a warning. My heart doesn't warn me about things. So if I was going to go down a dark alley at night and my gut feeling was, oh, I'm not going to go down there, my heart isn't speaking to me then, my intuition is. My heart is when I choose to do something because it brings me joy. And you might think, well, why wouldn't you always tune into your heart? But sometimes our heart's desire, say you picked up with somebody and fell in love with them and they were your everything, but they became narcissistic and abusive. Your heart, you love that person, your heart's telling you that you want to be with them and you love them, but they're not good for you. That's not good for your mental health. It's not good for you. That relationship's toxic. So your intuition at that point would be screaming, get out and protect yourself, as would your head. But your heart may still be keeping you tied to a situation that's not good for you. So that's really how I differentiate, is sometimes our heart's desire is perhaps not sensible or what's best for us. But then there are other decisions, like when you're choosing a career, you can choose a career that logically makes sense. But if you've got no joy for it, if you don't love it, you can still do it. You don't need to tune into your heart. Your heart doesn't need to be fulfilled, but you might find at some point you feel really upset or miserable, to use the word again, that you're doing something that isn't bringing you isn't making your heart sing. But do you need to consult your heart about it? No. But you might want to if you have a fulfilled life that brings you joy. So the heart is another tool that you can use, but I wouldn't automatically consult my heart for every single decision. Sometimes I might use one of the other tools instead. So it's just a different, for me.
Yeah, because I suppose it can be sort of like more emotionally driven rather than intuitive. Because I feel like it's just maybe distinguishing the two as well, between what's my emotional and what's my feeling, as in what I feel is good for me. Like feel, and an emotion would be a little bit different, because an emotion could, like where you gave an example of staying someone who's narcissistic, and you might ask your heart, but then I think I would argue that the heart would tell you how hurt you are. I feel like your heart would tell you, I'm hurt, and then it's up to you to sort of interpret that as, does that maybe mean you should leave, or are you then working off of your maybe codependence of, or your savior complex, if that's, of feeling like you must help this person, you must make them different, but then that's slightly different. I feel like that, I don't know, that just kind of like almost comes from a different place than necessarily the heart in that sense. I don't know. I'm just asking because it's interesting.
I think it could be a child that you have so much love for your child that you just forgive them everything and you want to protect them, look after them. But actually, sometimes that child might need to be told something that is going to upset them. But your heart may be like, no, but I love them. I just want to tell them that they're wonderful and perfect and that everything's okay. Are you actually really doing them a favor by doing that? Because of your love for them, are you hindering them without meaning to? So I don't know. I kind of view the heart as just this loving space that wants everybody to be safe and wants everybody to be happy and wants you to be happy. But sometimes it might not have that real world application by just pouring love out to everything all the time. Are you
not protecting? Yeah.
Beneficial? I don't know, and that's just my interpretation on it, but I feel like sometimes my heart may not be the best tool for me to use in certain situations, depending on how you look at your heart space and what that means to you.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, I think we've actually chatted a whole hour now, so as interesting as it is, and I think it would be time for us to finish. So yeah, if anyone has any questions post our discussion, then please feel free to comment. Maybe you want to share your experiences or any ideas. I don't know, maybe tools you're using, maybe you're already working with your intuition and how that shows in your life, then please let us know, whether it's Facebook or YouTube comments. That would be really good to hear from you. And I think I said that, but if you have any questions, then you can also post questions, and then maybe we can cover it in our next live.
Wonderful. Lovely to see you, Kat.
Yeah, and you as well. And I shall see you soon. So on Thursday, we'll be doing live readings, just a little reminder for everyone. And we'll see you till next time.
We'll see you soon.